This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Kof Tes Vav, as Baruch Hashem. We're in the final home stretch of this incredible Masechta, which will take us directly into Baba Basra, which of course is the end of the three Babas, B'siyata Dishmaya. We're holding in the bottom of Kuf Yadalad Mebeis. We are 4 lines in the bottom, or middle of discussing the halachas of the mashkain and when you have to return it, etc. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, 4 lines in the bottom. Mashkanoi, if someone took a mashkain and he gave it back to him, let's say his pillow at night when he needed it, umeis, and the loiva dies. Shamta me'agabe banav, the borrower, the malveh, is allowed to take back the mashkan from the children. Meisvei asked the Gemara, said Rameir, once we took a mashkin, why do we return it to him? Says Gemara, what are you talking about? The Torah said you have to return it. Rather, the question is, once we return it, why do we have to go back and take it again? If you can have to just go and give it back the next day, ask the Gemara, what are we doing? It sounds like one big circle. Says the Gemara, you know why? The reason is that Shemitah does not come along and cancel the law in V'layasim Metaltlin, Eitzel Banav, and so that the security does not become Metaltlin by the children if he dies. So for 2 reasons, we continuously take back the mashkain and then re-give it. Number 1, so that Shemitah is not mishamit because there is a mashkin. And number 2, that if you were to keep it in the hands of the life of the mashkin, then if he dies, the children are going to consider that the mashkin is his. Says the Gemara in the 3rd line, time of the other mashkin. It sounds like the reason that the malveh takes back the mashkin when the loiva dies is because he went and he took it for him when he finished using it. And therefore, only because the malveh has the item when the loiva dies, therefore he can take it. But it sounds like, if he didn't, and the loiva dies while he has the security, for example, he dies at night at a time that he got his pillow back, sounds like in that case the malveh would not get it back. Says the Gemara, but what do you mean? We just said a moment ago, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that even in a scenario where the loiva dies while having the security, the lacha is the malveh gets it back. So Amar Ravado, our master, Vlav Terutik Amitar's the law. Did we not already explain to Ritzachi? It doesn't mean in real time. It means, why do we always do this process that we give it to him, we take it back? Number 1, so Shvita is not Meshameh. Number 2, so it doesn't become a Taltzlin, Etzloi. Says the Gemara, Tanarabba, on 8 lines down. You should not come to his house to take the mashkin. You're not allowed to go in. Shall Arev, but medayik the Gemara, you could go to the house of the Arev, the guarantor, to take a mashkin from him. And certainly we see like a big die. Says the Torah, take his the Arev, ki Arev zar. Take the Arev's garment because he became a guarantor for a zar, a stranger for Gaimer. And the Pasuk says, Bini imaravta l'recha takata l'zar kabecha. If you become a Arev, your friend, you stuck out your hand for a stranger. Noi kashta b'imrei picha. You become ensnared in the words nelchadata b'imrei picha, caught up with the words of your mouth. Asay zois. Do this, Ephoi b'ni v'hi natzel, kivasam kabrech l'chas rabbeis urahav, shrabbeis urahav reyecha. So a bunch of psukim from Mishlei, do this and deliver yourself. Why? Because you come to the hands of your shachin, your neighbor, treat him as a ruler. So what do we learn now from this pasuk? Says the Gemara, if he has money, in your hand, meaning that you guaranteed his loan. Open up your hand to pay him. And if not, if you don't owe him money, but you made fun of him, you have to ask him for mechila, harba, love, reim. So the way that we're darshing for this pasuk is good for the nikuda that we're saying is that the arev obligates himself. The arev made himself obligated to his friend's chayiv, and it's going to even be so much as to have a mashkain taken from him. Says the Gemara, Letzad Sheni, to the other point that we can learn out from the pasuk, leveisai iata nichnas, that we can darshan, you can't enter into his house. Avata nichnas is le schar katov l'schar chamar, but you can enter into his house to take other debts, to take wages for the porter, the donkey driver, that you could extract against his will. L'schar pondek, the lodging fee, l'schar diuknois, for painting. Yachla afilu zakfan lav memilveh. No, masas mu'uma, any type of loan. So it says the Gemara, those are the halachas that you can't go, perhaps, and extract a mashkain against the loiv as well. But for other types of halvais, number one, you could. And number two, there are other scenarios that someone might owe money that you could, enter his house to take payment. Continues the Mishnah towards the end of Koftes Vav Amid Alf. Almana ben Shianiya ben Shiashira, and Almana, a woman without her husband, whether she has money or not, Ein Mimashkin Isa. We're not allowed to take a mashkin from her. Shenemar Leisachbol Beged Almana, says the Torah, you're not allowed to take skirting from the Beged, the garment of Almana. Tanu Rabbanon, let's understand what's going on over here. Almana, when it comes to an almana, ben shehi aniya, ben shehi ashira, whether she is poor, whether she is wealthy, ein mimashkin isa, we do not take a mashkin from her. Divrei Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon, Omer ashira, mimashkin isa, ani ein mimashkin isa. Shata chayiv lachzir alam. Why do you not take it from an ani? Because you have to return it to her. Vata. Sorry, our page just shrunk. There we go. Vata masiya shem ra b'shchenu sel. And you're giving her a bad name amongst the neighbors because they're going to see someone coming to her house to take the mashkin, and they're going to suspect that this almana is having an inappropriate relationship, etc. So machlekes Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon, whether there's ever a scenario that we can take a mashkain from an almana. Rav Yehuda says no. Rav Shimon says yes from an usher. Says the Gemara 4 lines. Maybe the Rav Yehuda lo darish time of the crop. Rav Shimon darish time of the crop. The Gemara suggests that it sounds like Rav Yehuda is being more literal, and Rav Shimon is darshaning up the reasons, and that's where Rav Shimon is allowing a mashkin from an usher, not an ani, and Rav Yehuda is not allowing a mashkin at all. But says the Gemara, we know the opposite. Titanya, we learned in a brisa, or the Tanan, they change it on the side. Says the pasuk regarding a melech, he should not take multiple wives. Rav Yehuda marbu. No, he can have many wives. Well, actually, Mesiras Asliba, as long as they don't take away his heart. Even one wife and she takes away her heart, you should not marry her. Says Rav Shimon, why does he lo yarbe lo nashim? Afilu kavigayol. It means that she cannot have too many wives, even if they're all incredible women like Abigail. So what do we see? We see that, not like we just said. We just said that Rav Yehuda is loy darish time of the Ikra, but over here he is darish time of the Ikra, and he's saying that the whole reason you're not allowed to have multiple wives is because they're going to take you away from Hashem, but if not, you're allowed to. And Rav Shimon the opposite. So says the Gemara, their shitas are backwards. Answers the Gemara smack in the middle of the long lines. La'ilam Rav Yehuda lo darish time of the Ikra. Really, you're right. Rav Yehuda does not darish in time of the Ikra, and that's the reason why Asi says whether the money is an usher or an ani, you're not allowed to take a mashkin. The shiny hacha, what's going on over here by the king? The Mefarish Kra says the pasuk v'lo yarba lo nashim v'lo yasur. The Torah adds on, not only should not have many wives, v'lo yasur, she should not turn her heart away from Hashem. My time, lo yarba lo nashim misham lo yasur. So Rabbi Yehuda says, in general, I'm asking, we're not Darshatayim Dekra. But over here, the Torah explicates intentionally, says Rabbi Yehuda, to teach us this din. For Rav Shimon, Mechti B'amad Hashin Time Dekra. So Lichter Rachmana lo yarba, v'lo bin lo yaser. V'naya dana my time lo yarba, misham de lo yaser. Says Rav Shimon, I normally hold that your yester is time of the kra. So why here do we need the actual yasir? If you darsh the time of the kra, there's no reason. So says the Gemara that if you lack some serious libar, is the Rav Shimon says over here it shows us to go above and beyond to teach us that even if one would take away her arm from Hashem, his arm from Hashem, you're not allowed to do. But says the Gemara, there's no stira between Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon, and we're coming out klape our sigyo. Whether you take a mashkin from it on your nashir, it is of a almana, to machlekes. Rav Yehuda, this is absolutely not. Rav Shimon says from an ashir, yes. And we continue with the Mishnah. One who takes a rechayim, a mill, as a security. Over misham loisaseh, over right away, is over loisaseh. V'chayim misham shnei kalim, and he's chayiv for taking two kalim. Shneimar loyachbel rechayim v'rechev. You should not take the upper or the lower millstone. V'lo rechayim v'rechev. It didn't say that you only chayiv if you take the lower or the upper. Bilvad. Ela called amru. Ela called davar sha'iseh by oichel nefesh. Shenamar ki nefesh hu chayiv hell. His life is the security, and therefore, especially surim for you taking away items that provide him a livelihood, items that are bordering on oichel nefesh. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, 4 lines in the bottom of Kuftes Vavam and Aleph. Chaval rechayim like a shtayim misham rechayim umisham ki nefeshu. 2 isurim, 2 malkis. Number 1, it's rechayim, and number 2 is ki nefeshu chayvel. That he took away his life because it's eichel nefesh. Rechayim v'rechev. If he takes a lower and an upper millstone, the 2 parts, like a shalish, misham rechayim v'rechev, o misham ki nefesh uchayvel. So therefore, rechayim v'rechev is 2, and nefesh uchayvel is number 3. Rav Yehuda Imer chavel rechayim loika achas v'rechav v'rechev loika achas. If you take just the top is 1. Rechayim v'rechev, you take the top and the bottom, then it's shayim. Ki nefesh uchayvel. So what is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, clearly ki nefesh uchayvel is not teaching me a localized din, because if it was, it would either be 2 or 3, like Rav Huna said. But rather, what is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, how's he darshing up the psukim? So it says the Gemara, as we turn over to Koftes Vavam Beis, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Ki nefesh uchayvel comes to teach us l'shar devarim hu'asa, comes to teach us other items used in food preparations you cannot take. And as Rashi points out now, to tell us about rechev and rechayim. Says the Gemara, this is machlokes Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. Lema Abaye v'Rava b'ploik Rav Huna v'Rav Yehuda kamifli. Is this an old machlokes of Abaye and Rava? Tamai Rava chalnam. Like Eshtayim, by the carbon Pesach, if you eat it raw, if you eat it raw but partially roasted, there's 2 malkas. Number 1, misham na. Number 1, because you ate it partially roasted. Number 2, misham kim sliesh mevushal. Kim sliesh. Number 2, because the pasuk says it has to be roasted, and you ate it not roasted. Mevushal, if you ate the carbon Pesach when it's boiled, cooked, like Eshtayim, number 1, misham mevushal, and number 2, misham kim sliesh, has to be roasted. No umevushal. If you ate the carbon Pesach when it's both no and mevushal, it's partially roasted and it is cooked, then like a shalish, misham na, number 1, misham mevushal, number 2, misham lo sachano kim sliesh, number 3. So that is shitas Rava, that in the case of partially roasted and mevushal, there'll be 2 lavim. In the case of partially roasted and cooked, there will be 3 lavim. Comes Ling Abaye Omar. Says the Heilige Abaye, Ein Laikin. Alav Shebeklala. Says Abaye, no, too much. There's no Malchus, not Malchus, Malchus, excuse me, for a generalized lav. And therefore, in terms of Abaye, the pasuk that says you have to eat it, Kim Sliesh, is not going to add on an extra lav. So Abaye is going to hold, you're only going to be over either for na or for mevushal. So says the Gemara, Lema Abaye v'Rava, Damar Krav Yehuda. Lema Abaye, excuse me, Damar Krav Yehuda. It sounds like Abaye goes to Rav Yehuda that says that when you take the Rechayim, there is no Isser, there's no general Isser against taking Eichel Nefesh items. You're not over in Ki Nefesh Uchayvel. And Rava, Damar Krav Huna. And Rava is going to be like Rav Huna. The first sheet that says you are over will be like Rava, that says there's always going to be an Isser extra lav. So it sounds like the Machlaikes of Rav Huna, of Abaye and Rava, whether there's Malchus lav shebeklala is the Machlaikes Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda. Says the Gemara, Amr L'cha Rava, no. I know Dami Avili Rav Yehuda. Says Rava, I don't have to hold only like Rav Huna. I could hold even like Rav Yehuda. Why? And can the come Rav Yehuda awesome? Rav Yehuda only said it in over there. Because when the pasuk says nefesh uchayvel, it's not talking about, it's not mashma rechaim v'rechev. It's mashma regular food types of items. Hilkach l'shar dvar mudasa. That's the reason why in the top of this Amud we learned that it's coming to l'shar dvar mudasa. It's coming to teach us eichel nefesh items. Aval hacha, says Rava, by the government Pesach, kim yesh l'mayasa. What else did the pasuk write it for? Eshmamina l'lav. It must be to teach me a lav, and therefore it says Rava, if you didn't know, you didn't mavushal, there's two. You didn't know mavushal, there's going to be three. But that's not only according to Rav Huna, that's even according to Rav Yehuda. Abaye will tell you, another Amri, Avila Rav Huna. I can come Rav Huna Asam, El Tchi Nefesh Uchayvel, is Yisera. That's where Rav Huna learned as an extra lav. So you turn over the tab of Kufta Zayin and out. Yiseri, given the Yisera, since it's extra, Shadir Rechaim V'Rechav. I apologize for other words in front of us. But over here, says Abaye by the garment Pesach, Kim Sliesh Lav Yisera. Why? To be by the Tanya, B'Shashi Eshla B'Kom, Achal Tzli, when one is in the positive din of Kom Eichel Tzli, Yeshla Bal Teichel Na, B'Shashi Enoch Bal Eichel Tzli. For example, if he eats it during the daytime when it's not the time of the Karban Pesach, says Abaye, this has nothing to do with the Machlekes Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna. We stop over here and we'll pick up with Rayos to Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda as we'll finish the Perek, Siyata D'Shmaya, in the next Shir.